The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in their assigned seats, each group surrounded by their own guards. The meeting today was important. 3 star systems were fighting over mining rights, and everyone knew the talks could turn ugly fast. Ambassador Hyun Woo straightened his simple blue uniform as he walked into the hall. Behind him came his 2 guards, Bo Ram and Tae Ho. They wore the same plain blue clothes as their ambassador. No armor covered their bodies. No weapons hung from their belts. Their hands were empty, and they looked more like office workers than soldiers. Velthar, the tall reptilian diplomat from the Saurian hegemony, watched the humans enter with growing confusion. His own guards wore thick armor plates that gleamed under the hall's bright lights. Each carried a plasma rifle across their chest and had backup weapons on their hips. They looked ready for war. The insectoid Crixtail delegation sat nearby. Their 4 guards looked like giant mantises in metal suits. Energy weapons hummed softly in their clawed hands. Blue light pulsed from their helmet visors as they scanned the room for threats. Even the peaceful Mordun brought ceremonial swords that could cut through steel. The crystalline Zephani guards had personal shields that made the air shimmer around them. Every single species in the hall came armed and ready for trouble. Every species except the humans. Velthar leaned toward his aide, a smaller reptilian named Sektar. "Look at the human guards," he whispered, his forked tongue flicking out as he spoke. "They bring nothing. No weapons, no armor, nothing at all." Sektar followed his gaze to where Boram and Tae-ho stood behind their ambassador. The female guard had her hands clasped behind her back. She looked calm, almost bored. The male guard stood with his feet apart and arms at his sides. Both humans appeared completely relaxed. "Perhaps they hide weapons inside their clothes?" Sektar suggested quietly. "I see no bulges. No power signatures on my scanner." Velthar tapped a small device on his wrist. "My readings show they carry nothing more dangerous than their identification cards." Across the hall, Zixmore of the Crixtal delegation noticed the same thing. His compound eyes could see much more than most species. He studied the humans with growing disbelief. No heat signatures from hidden weapons. No electromagnetic fields from shield generators. No chemical traces from explosive devices. "The humans mock us," Zixmore clicked to his guards in their buzzing language. "They show weakness. They invite attack." One of his guards, Rixtal, tilted, her insect head. "Should we be concerned about this weakness? Perhaps they plan something." What could they plan with empty hands? Zixmore's mandibles clicked with amusement. "They are either very stupid or very confident. Either way, they show disrespect." The meeting began when Council Speaker Morgeth called for order. The ancient being's voice echoed through the hall from speakers built into every seat. Representatives settled into their places as the lights dimmed slightly. "We gather today to discuss the territorial dispute in the Kepler 442 system," Morgeth announced. 3 civilizations claim mining rights to the asteroid belt. Each delegation will present their case. The first to speak was Commander Thulvan from the Nexari Coalition. His people were known for being aggressive traders who took what they wanted. "The asteroids were discovered by our mining ships 2 years ago. We have the legal right of first discovery." "Your ships were trespassing in our territory," argued Elder Mordock of the Mordun. His species looked like walking trees, tall and patient, but their anger was legendary. We have claimed that entire system for over 50 years. Claims mean nothing without the power to enforce them, Zixmore interrupted, his voice harsh through the translation system. The Krixtal Collective has already begun mining operations. We will not be stopped by words on paper. The tension in the room grew thick. Guards shifted their positions. Weapons hummed with increasing energy. Everyone could feel the meeting, sliding toward conflict. Everyone except the humans. Ambassador Hyun-woo sat calmly in his chair, reading through papers on his tablet. Bo-ram and Tae-ho remained perfectly still behind him. Neither showed any sign of concern about the rising hostility around them. Velthar found this behavior very strange. His own guards had already raised their plasma rifles to ready position. The Zephani shields glowed brighter. Even the peaceful Mordun had placed hands on their sword handles. But the human guards acted like they were waiting for a bus. This is madness, Velthar muttered to himself. Do they not understand the danger? The arguing continued for another hour. Voices grew louder. Accusations flew back and forth. Twice, guards from different species moved toward each other before their masters called them back. Through it all, the humans remained calm. During a brief break, Velthar decided he had to know the truth. He approached Ambassador Hyun-woo with what he hoped looked like casual interest. Ambassador, Velthar said, trying to keep his voice friendly, I could not help but notice your guards are uniquely equipped for this environment. Hyun-woo looked up from his tablet and smiled. It was a warm, genuine smile that somehow made Velthar feel both welcomed and worried. How do you mean, Ambassador Velthar? Well, they appear to carry no weapons, no protective gear. In a gathering where tempers run so high, this seems unusual. The human ambassador's smile grew wider. Oh, that. Yes, we get that question quite often. He glanced back at his guards, who had not moved or changed expression during the entire conversation. Our guards are quite adequately prepared for any situation that might arise. Velthar blinked his large reptilian eyes. Prepared? How can they be prepared with no equipment? The best preparation often requires no equipment at all, Hyun-woo replied. His voice carried a confidence that made Velthar's scales itch with unease. Bo-ram and Tae-ho graduated from Earth's finest diplomatic protection program. They are exactly what they need to be. This answer explained nothing, but Velthar could tell the human would say no more. He returned to his seat with more questions than before. When the session resumed, the arguments grew even more heated. Zixmore stood and pointed an accusing claw at Elder Mordok. Your people are too weak to hold those asteroids. We will take them whether you agree or not. Try it, Mordok replied, his tree-like face hardening. We have defended our territory for centuries. From species with honor, perhaps, Commander Thulvin added. The Krixtal have no honor. They are insects who swarm and devour. The insult hit home. Zixmore's 4 guards raised their weapons. The Nexari guards responded by powering up their own guns. The Mordun drew their ceremonial swords, which began glowing with inner fire. In seconds, the hall filled with the whine of charging weapons and the crackle of energy shields. Representatives dove behind their chairs. Diplomatic staff scattered toward the exits. But the humans did not move. Bo-ram and Tae-ho stood in exactly the same positions they had held all day. Their hands remained visible and empty. Their faces showed no concern, no fear, no preparation for combat. Velthar, crouched behind his chair, stared at them in amazement. Were they frozen with fear? Did they not understand what was happening? Then, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. The humans were not looking at the weapons pointed in their direction. Instead, both guards stared directly at Zixmore and his warriors. Their eyes held a calm, patient focus that reminded Velthar of predators watching prey. But that was impossible. They had no weapons, no armor, no way to fight back against plasma, rifles and energy swords. The standoff stretched on. Weapons hummed. Guards glared at each other across the hall. And through it all, the human guards simply stood and waited, as if they knew something nobody else did. Ambassador Hyunwoo calmly gathered his papers and stood up. "Perhaps we should take a recess to allow tempers to cool," he suggested in the same pleasant voice he had used all day. Nobody answered him. All eyes remained fixed on the weapons and the warriors holding them. But Velthar kept watching the humans, and a terrible thought began growing in his mind. What if they were not helpless at all? The weapons stayed raised for 10 long minutes. Energy rifles hummed with deadly power. Sword blades glowed hot enough to melt steel. The air itself seemed to vibrate with tension and barely controlled violence. Ambassador Hyunwoo cleared his throat. "As I was saying, perhaps we should take a short break. These discussions can continue more productively after everyone has had time to calm down." Zixmore spun toward the human, his compound eyes flashing with rage. "Calm down? Your species knows. Nothing of strength. You come here like children playing dress-up while real warriors handle serious business." His 4 guards shifted their aim toward the human delegation. Plasma rifles whined as power cores reached full charge. The targeting systems locked onto Ambassador Hyunwoo, Boram, and Taeho. Other delegates gasped and ducked lower behind their chairs. This was exactly the kind of incident that could start a war. Attacking a diplomatic mission was forbidden by every law in the galaxy. But the human guards did not move. Boram continued staring straight ahead with calm, patient eyes. Her breathing remained slow and steady. Her hands stayed clasped behind her back in a relaxed position. Tae-ho showed even less reaction. He might have been watching a boring movie instead of looking down the barrels of 4 military-grade weapons. His face held the same mild expression he had worn all day. Ambassador Hyunwoo simply nodded at Zixmore as if the insectoid had made a reasonable point. "I understand your frustration, Ambassador Zixmore. These territorial disputes are always difficult. Perhaps after a break, we can find a solution that works for everyone." "The only solution is for the weak to step aside," Zixmore clicked angrily. "Your species has no business in discussions between real powers. You should return to your little blue planet and play with your toys." The insult echoed through the hall. Even species that disliked humans recognized this as going too far. Diplomatic immunity existed for good reasons. Velthar watched from behind his chair, his reptilian heart beating fast. He expected the human guards to finally react, to draw hidden weapons or activate secret shields or call for backup from their ship. Instead, Boram yawned. It was a small yawn, quickly covered by her hand, but unmistakable. She was bored. Taeho glanced at his wrist as if checking the time. He looked mildly annoyed, like someone waiting for a late appointment. "I will give you one last chance," Zixmore buzzed, stepping forward with his guards. "Leave this place now, or we will remove you ourselves." "That would be most unfortunate," Ambassador Hyunwoo replied sadly. "I was hoping we could resolve this peacefully." The Krixtal guards raised their weapons to firing position. Energy crackled along the rifle barrels. Everyone in the hall held their breath. Then, Zixmore collapsed. He simply fell forward like someone had turned off his power switch. His armored body hit the floor with a loud crash that echoed through the silent hall. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody understood what had happened. Then the first guard fell. Rixtal, who had been aiming directly at Boram, suddenly swayed on her insect legs. Her rifle dropped from nerveless claws as she toppled backward. The second guard lasted 3 more seconds before crumpling to the ground. The third managed to take one confused step before his legs gave out. The fourth guard, standing furthest from the humans, had enough time to look around in panic before he too collapsed in a heap of armor and limbs. Total elapsed time, 37 seconds. Boram and Taiho had not moved from their positions. They had not drawn weapons because they carried none. They had not activated devices because they possessed none. They had not even changed their breathing patterns. Yet 4 heavily armed Krixtal warriors now lay unconscious on the floor. The hall erupted in chaos. Representatives jumped up from behind chairs, shouting questions and demands. Guard units from every delegation raised their weapons, not sure who to point them at. Medical staff ran toward the fallen Krixtal, while security teams rushed in from all entrances. Through the noise and confusion, the human guards remained perfectly calm. Commander Velnox of Station Security arrived with 6 of his officers. The 4-armed Tetrian was known throughout the galaxy as one of the best investigators alive. His species evolved from pack hunters, and their instincts for finding truth were legendary. "Nobody move," Velnox commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. "This is now a security incident. All weapons will be lowered immediately." The various guard units reluctantly complied, though they kept their fingers near trigger controls. Velnox approached the fallen Krixtal carefully. His 4 arms moved independently as he checked pulses, examined equipment, and scanned for obvious injuries. "They are alive," he announced. "Unconscious but stable. No visible wounds." Dr. Morwen, the station's chief medical officer, knelt beside Zixmore with her scanning equipment. The elderly physician had seen every type of injury and illness in 40 years of practice. "Vital signs are normal," she reported. "Brain activity shows natural sleep patterns. Whatever happened to them, it was not violent." "Sleep patterns?" Velnox questioned. "You mean they are simply sleeping?" "Deep sleep. Very deep. But completely natural. No drugs in their systems. No neural damage. No outside interference I can detect." Dr. Morwen sounded puzzled. "It is as if they all decided to take a nap at the exact same time." Velnox turned his attention to the humans. Boram and Taiho stood exactly where they had been throughout the entire incident. Ambassador Hyunwoo was gathering his papers again, apparently preparing to leave. "Ambassador," Velnox said carefully, "I need to ask you and your guards some questions about what just happened here." "Of course, Commander," Hyunwoo replied with the same pleasant smile he had shown everyone. "Though I am afraid we cannot provide much insight. We were simply standing here when the Krixtal delegation experienced their difficulty." "Difficulty?" Velnox's voice carried a dangerous edge. 4 armed warriors collapsed for no apparent reason while threatening your delegation. That seems like more than a difficulty. Medical emergencies can happen to anyone at any time, Hyunwoo said sadly. "I do hope they recover quickly." Velnox studied the human ambassador's face. In 40 years of security work, He had developed excellent instincts for detecting lies, but the human seemed genuinely concerned about the Krixtal delegation's health. He turned to the guards. Boram, Teho, did either of you see what happened to cause this incident? No, sir, Boram replied politely. We were standing at our posts when the Krixtal delegation suddenly fell down. We did not move or do anything that might have caused their problem. Did you see any unusual energy signatures? Hear any strange sounds? Notice anything at all that might explain this? Nothing. Unusual, Commander, Teho answered. We were simply doing our jobs. Velnox felt frustration building in his chest. The humans were telling the truth as far as his instincts could detect. But 4 healthy warriors did not just fall asleep during a confrontation for no reason. He activated his personal scanner and ran detailed sweeps of the area around the human delegation. No energy residue, no chemical traces, no electromagnetic anomalies. The air itself showed nothing unusual. Commander, Dr. Morwen called from where she was still examining the unconscious Krixtal. I am finding something very strange in their brain chemistry. Velnox hurried over to her position. What kind of strange? Their neurotransmitter levels have been altered. Specifically, the chemicals that control consciousness and alertness have been suppressed while those that promote sleep have been elevated. She showed him readings on her scanner. But there is no external cause I can identify. No drugs, no neural manipulation devices, no psychic interference. Could this be natural? Some kind of medical condition? Not in 4 healthy adults at the same exact moment. This was caused by something, I just cannot determine what. Velnox looked back at the humans. They were still standing patiently, waiting to be dismissed. Their behavior throughout the entire incident had been completely normal. Too normal. How long have you served as diplomatic guards? He asked Boram. 3 years, Commander. And you, Teho? 4 years, sir. Have either of you ever encountered a situation like this before? They exchanged a quick glance. It was the first time either had shown any reaction other than calm politeness. Situations like this are quite rare, Boram said carefully. Most diplomatic meetings proceed without incident. That was not what I asked. Another glance between them. Then Teho spoke. We have encountered various emergencies during our service, Commander. Medical issues, equipment failures, occasional diplomatic tensions. We are trained to remain calm and professional regardless of circumstances. Again, the answer was technically truthful, while revealing nothing useful. Dr. Morwen approached with her final readings. The effects are already wearing off naturally. I estimate the Krixtal delegation will wake up within the next hour with no lasting effects. Whatever caused this was temporary and harmless. Harmless? Velnox looked at the 4 unconscious warriors. They were rendered completely helpless in seconds. If someone had wanted to kill them, they could have done so easily. But no one did, Ambassador Hyunwoo pointed out gently. Whatever happened, it clearly was not intended to cause harm. Perhaps we should be grateful that a potentially violent situation resolved itself peacefully. Velnox wanted to argue, but the human was right. No laws, hey. Commander Velnox sat in his office, staring at the security footage for the 15th time. The holographic display showed the same impossible scene from every angle. 4 armed Krixtal warriors threatening the human delegation, weapons raised and ready to fire. Then sudden collapse with no visible cause. His deputy Chintar leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. The younger Tetrian had been reviewing the data for 6 hours straight. I have checked every sensor on the station, Commander, No energy discharges, no gas releases, no sonic weapons, no psychic emanations. The humans did absolutely nothing detectable. Something happened, Velnox insisted, rewinding the footage again. 4 healthy warriors do not simply fall asleep during combat readiness. There has to be an explanation. Perhaps the Krikstal staged it themselves, some kind of political move. Velnox shook his head. Dr. Morwen's scans were thorough. The brain chemistry changes were real and immediate. They were genuinely unconscious, not pretending. On the screen, Ambassador Hyunwoo calmly gathered his papers while chaos erupted around him. The human showed no surprise, no relief, no reaction at all to the sudden removal of a lethal threat. His behavior was almost as disturbing as the incident itself. What about the guards? Any background information that might explain their capabilities? Chintar activated his datapad. Bo-Ram Kim, age 28, born on Earth Colony Kepler 438b, attended Seoul National University, graduated with degrees in linguistics and cultural studies, joined diplomatic service 4 years ago, promoted to guard duty 1 year later. That sounds like a normal diplomatic career path. Taeho Park, age 31, Earthborn, raised in Busan. Military background, served 6 years in the Earth Defense Force before transferring to diplomatic service. Combat training, weapons expertise, hand-to-hand combat instructor. Now that is more interesting. What kind of combat training? Standard EDF curriculum, nothing unusual. Plasma weapons, energy shields, close quarters combat, all the normal. Skills any military trains. But Commander... Chintar paused, looking troubled. What is it? I contacted the Earth Defense Force Personnel Office to verify his records. They confirmed everything, but the officer I spoke with seemed nervous when I mentioned Taeho's current assignment. Velnox straightened in his chair. Nervous how? She asked several times why I was inquiring about a diplomatic guard. When I explained about the incident, she said she would need to transfer me to a different department. Then the call was disconnected. Did you try calling back? Yes. They said the personnel office was closed for system maintenance and would not reopen for 24 hours. Velnox felt his hunter instincts stirring. After 40 years of investigation work, he could sense when people were hiding something important. What about Bo-Ram's background? I contacted Seoul National University. Her academic records are complete and normal. But when I asked about any special training programs she might have attended, the registrar became very quiet. Finally, she said Bo-Ram had participated in an interdisciplinary research project during her senior year. What kind of research project? She would not say. The information was classified at the request of the Earth government. Velnox stood and began pacing around his office. His 4 arms moved independently as he thought, a habit from his hunting ancestors. So we have 2 humans with classified backgrounds working as diplomatic guards who carry no weapons, but somehow defeated 4 armed warriors, and their home government becomes nervous when anyone asks questions. Should we contact Earth directly? Not yet. Let me talk to Dr. Morwen first. Maybe her medical analysis can tell us more. The medical bay was quiet when Velnox arrived. Dr. Morwen was still running tests on blood samples from the unconscious Krikstal delegation. The 4 warriors had been moved to private rooms where they continued sleeping peacefully. Any new discoveries, Doctor? Morwen looked up from her analysis station. The elderly physician appeared troubled. Several discoveries, actually. None of them make sense. Tell me. The brain chemistry changes I detected earlier were extremely precise. Someone or something altered specific neurotransmitter levels. by exact amounts needed to induce immediate unconsciousness without causing any damage. She showed him molecular diagrams on her screen. This level of precision would require detailed knowledge of crystal neurology. Could a human possess such knowledge? Possibly. But the delivery method is what puzzles me. To alter brain chemistry so quickly and precisely, you would need direct access to the nervous system. Injection, inhalation, skin contact, something. But my scans show no foreign substances in their bodies at all. Velnox studied the complex diagrams. What about remote methods, energy beams, sonic manipulation? I considered those possibilities, but the changes occurred simultaneously in 4 different individuals standing in different locations. Any external source would show variations, in effect based on distance and positioning. These readings are identical in all 4 patients. So whatever happened, it affected all 4 targets equally despite their different positions in the room. Exactly. And there is something else. Dr. Morwen pulled up another set of readings. I decided to analyze the brain chemistry of other species in the hall during the incident. The Saurians, Nexari, Morden, and Zephani all showed slight changes in the same neurotransmitters. Velnox felt a chill run down his spine. They were affected too? Minimally. The changes in their systems were barely detectable and caused no symptoms. But the pattern is identical to what happened to the crystal, just much weaker. What about your own readings? Were you affected? Morwen hesitated. I was not in the hall during the incident. I arrived afterward, but I did scan myself as a control sample. She paused, looking uncomfortable. I found trace amounts of the same neurotransmitter changes. That is impossible. You were not even present when it happened. The traces were extremely faint. They could have been residual effects from examining the patients. But the pattern matches perfectly. Velnox began pacing again, his mind racing. So whatever caused this affected every non-human in the area to some degree. The crystal received a full dose that knocked them unconscious. Everyone else received smaller amounts that caused no obvious effects. That appears to be correct. But I have no idea how such a thing could be accomplished. What about the humans? Did you scan them? I tried. Ambassador Hyunwoo politely declined, citing diplomatic immunity. The guards submitted to basic medical scans but showed completely normal brain chemistry. No unusual readings at all. Velnox left the medical bay with more questions than answers. He decided to try a different approach and returned to his office to review historical data. Kintar, I need you to search the database for any previous incidents involving human diplomatic missions. Look for unexplained events, security anomalies, anything unusual. His deputy worked for 2 hours while Velnox interviewed other witnesses from the hall. The various delegates all told similar stories. They had been watching the confrontation when the crystal suddenly collapsed. No one had seen the humans do anything suspicious, but several mentioned feeling strangely calm during the incident. Elder Mordock said he had been ready to draw his sword to defend the humans, but then felt an overwhelming sense that violence was unnecessary. Commander Thulvin admitted he had almost ordered his guards to fire on the crystal, but something made him hesitate. When Chintar finished his search, his expression was grim. How many incidents did you find? Velnox asked. 17 in the past 5 years, all involving human diplomatic missions, all with unexplained security anomalies. Tell me about them. Kintar activated the holographic display. 3 years ago, Starbase Omega-7. A group of Saurian extremists planned to assassinate human trade representative Su Jin during negotiations. Security found them unconscious in their quarters 2 hours before the planned attack. No explanation for their condition. Continue. 2 years ago, Nexar Prime. Human Ambassador Hyunwoo was targeted by local terrorists during trade talks. The entire terrorist cell was discovered sleeping in their hideout, with all weapons mysteriously disassembled. Local authorities could not explain how their secure facility was breached, or who disarmed them. Velnox felt his blood growing cold. How many of these incidents involved Ambassador Hyunwoo specifically? 11 of the 17. He has been present at more unexplained security events than any other diplomatic figure in recorded history. What about the guards? Do any names repeat? Boram and Taeho appear in 8 of the reports together. Several other human guards are mentioned in the remaining incidents, but these two have the most appearances. So wherever these particular humans go, potential threats mysteriously become incapacitated before they can act. It appears that way. But, Commander, there is something else you need to see. Chintar brought up a classified intelligence report with heavy security restrictions. I had to use my emergency access codes to view this. It is from Saurian military intelligence, filed 6 months ago. The document was marked with warnings in multiple languages. Velnox read through it quickly, his 4 hearts beating faster, with each paragraph. They think the humans have developed some kind of psychic warfare capability, he said finally. That is their working theory. The report suggests human diplomatic. Dr. Cathara stood in her private laboratory, staring at data that should not exist. The Zephani scientist was known throughout the galaxy for her analytical mind and relentless pursuit of truth. Her crystalline species evolved from living computers, making them natural researchers and problem solvers. But the human mystery was unlike anything she had ever encountered. Computer, display all known incidents involving human diplomatic security anomalies. 17 holographic files materialized in the air around her. Each one showed the same impossible pattern. Threats against human diplomats suddenly becoming unconscious with no detectable cause. No weapons, no technology, no explanation. She had spent 3 days reviewing every detail, and the facts made no scientific sense. The door chimed softly. Cathara looked up to see her research assistant, young Zephlon, entering with more data. Files. Professor, I have the medical reports you requested from the other incidents. The patterns are identical in every case. Show me. Zephlon activated his portable projector. Brain chemistry diagrams filled the space above Cathara's workstation. Precise neurotransmitter manipulation in all subjects. Perfect dosing to cause unconsciousness without harm. No trace of delivery method or external influence. It is as if someone reached directly into their brains and flipped a switch, Cathara mused. But that should be impossible without physical contact or advanced technology. There is something else, Professor. I contacted researchers from 7 different species who have studied these incidents. They all stopped their investigations suddenly after receiving visits from their respective intelligence agencies. Cathara's crystalline form shifted color slightly, indicating deep thought. They were told to stop investigating? Ordered to. Stop. Classified materials were confiscated. Several researchers were transferred to different projects entirely, but you and I have received no such orders. Not yet. But, Professor, I think I know why. Zephlon activated another file. I traced the investigation patterns. Every species that ordered their scientists to stop had already reached the same conclusion about human capabilities. What conclusion? That humans have developed some form of psychic or quantum-based warfare technology that makes conventional defense impossible. Cathara pondered this information. Her species was naturally curious, sometimes to a dangerous degree. The mystery of human diplomatic guards had become an obsession for her over the past week. Computer, establish secure communication with Intelligence Chief Morgak of the Saurian hegemony. Professor, is that wise? Zephlon asked nervously. If their government ordered silence on this topic, I need to know what they discovered before I can understand the full picture. The communication screen activated after several minutes of security protocols. Morgak appeared, his reptilian features showing obvious discomfort. Dr. Cathara, this is unexpected. How may I help you? I am researching the recent incident at the Galactic Council. I believe your intelligence service has relevant information about human defensive capabilities. Morgak was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. I cannot discuss classified materials with foreign researchers. This affects the security of all galactic civilizations. Surely scientific cooperation is more important than political secrecy. You do not understand the implications of what you are investigating. Then help me understand. What did your analysts discover about human diplomatic guards? Another pause. Cathara could see Morgak struggling with some internal decision. Off the record, he said finally. Completely unofficial. If you ever quote me, I will deny everything. Agreed. Morgak leaned closer to his screen. 3 years ago, we attempted to eliminate a human trade representative who was negotiating agreements unfavorable to our interests. An elite assassination team was sent to Starbase Omega-7. What happened? They were found unconscious in their quarters 2 hours before the planned attack. All of them, simultaneously. Medical examination showed the same brain chemistry changes you have probably discovered by now. How did you know they would attempt the assassination? We did not know. They never communicated their intentions to anyone. The mission was classified at the highest levels, yet somehow they were neutralized before they could act. Cathara felt her crystalline structure pulse with excitement. The humans detected hostile intent without any communication or surveillance. That was our conclusion. But it gets worse. Morgak checked to ensure his communication was still encrypted. We sent surveillance teams to observe human diplomatic missions. Teams with no hostile intentions, only orders to watch and report. Were they detected? No. They completed their missions normally, but teams sent with hostile backup plans. Instructions to act if certain conditions were met. Those teams experienced equipment failures, medical emergencies, and other problems that prevented completion of their assignments. The humans can somehow distinguish between observation and potential threat. It appears so. Our analysts believe they have developed technology that reads brain patterns associated with hostile intent. The effective range appears to be at least 1 kilometer, possibly more. Cathara was taking detailed notes. What countermeasures have you developed? Morgak's laugh was bitter. None that work. We tried mental shielding, electronic jamming, psychic protection, pharmaceutical alterations to brain chemistry. Nothing. Prevents the effect. If humans perceive a threat, that threat becomes neutralized. How do they neutralize it? We are not certain. The victims always fall unconscious through altered neurotransmitter levels, but we cannot detect any delivery method. No energy beams, no gas attacks, no injected substances. The brain chemistry simply changes instantaneously. Cathara reviewed her data files. Your intelligence reports suggest this ability is limited to specially trained diplomatic guards. Correct. Not all humans possess this capability. We estimate perhaps a few hundred individuals galaxy-wide have received whatever training or modification grants these powers. Do you believe it is natural evolution or artificial enhancement? Unknown. But, Professor, let me give you some advice. Morgak's voice became deadly serious. Stop this investigation, classify your research, and move to a different project. Why? The humans have used this ability only defensively. They pose no threat to peaceful species. That is exactly the problem. They pose no threat because they do not need to. If humans wanted to conquer the galaxy, they could simply attend diplomatic meetings with every government and render entire leadership structures unconscious. No weapons, no invasion fleets, just a few trained individuals in the same room with their targets. The implications hit Cathara like a physical blow. They could take over any civilization without firing a shot. Now you understand why my government ordered silence on this research. The only thing protecting galactic civilization is human moral restraint. If other species learned the truth, some might attempt preemptive strikes against Earth, which would fail because the humans would detect hostile intent. Exactly. And then humanity might decide that peaceful coexistence is no longer possible. Cathara stared at the data surrounding her with new understanding. The humans had not revealed a defensive technology. They had revealed that conventional warfare was obsolete and they could end any conflict before it began. How long have your analysts suspected this? The pattern became clear 18 months ago. We have been quietly advising all our allies to maintain excellent relations with humanity and never, under any circumstances, to threaten human interests. After ending the communication, Cathara sat in her laboratory, reviewing everything she had learned. The scientific part of her mind was fascinated by the implications. The practical part was terrified. She activated her personal files and began composing a research summary. As a scientist, she had an obligation to document her findings, but as a rational being, she understood the dangers of spreading this knowledge. Zephlon, I need you to help me with something very important. Her assistant approached carefully. What do you need, Professor? I want you to compile a complete analysis of human diplomatic security incidents. Include all medical data, intelligence reports, and theoretical conclusions. Make it comprehensive and detailed. Should I prepare it for publication? No. Prepare it for the senior council members only. This information is too dangerous for general distribution, but the leadership needs to understand what they are dealing with when they negotiate with humans. Zephlon nodded and began working. As he compiled the data, Cathara continued her own research into human behavioral patterns. What she found was equally disturbing and reassuring. In 12 years of galactic membership, humanity had never used their mysterious ability for aggression. They had never threatened other species or demanded special treatment. Their diplomatic requests were always reasonable, their trade agreements fair, their territorial claims modest. It was as if they were deliberately avoiding any actions that might prompt other species to view them as a threat. Professor, Zephlon called from his workstation, I am finding additional patterns in the data. What kind of patterns? Species that have attempted hostile actions against humans consistently experience other problems afterward. Equipment failures in their military fleets, computer viruses in their communication networks, accident. The emergency session was called for midnight station time, when most of the diplomatic staff would be sleeping. 5 senior council members gathered in the secure conference room deep within Nexus Station's core. The room had no windows, no recording devices, and shielding that prevented any form of surveillance. Dr. Cathara stood at the head of the table, her crystalline form glowing softly in the dim lighting. Around her sat the most powerful beings in known space: Velthar of the Saurian hegemony, Zixmar of the Krixtal Collective, who had recovered fully from his mysterious collapse, Commander Thulvin of the Nexari Coalition, Elder Mordok of the Mordan Republic, and Crystal Singer Zephyl of the Zephani Confederation. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Cathara began. "What I am about to share with you will change how we view humanity's place in galactic civilization." Velthar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Dr. Cathara, if this concerns the recent incident with the Krixtal delegation, perhaps we should wait for the official investigation to conclude." "The official investigation will find nothing, Ambassador Velthar, just as 17 previous investigations have found nothing. But I have found something else entirely." She activated her portable holographic projector. Data files filled the air around the table, each one documenting mysterious incidents involving human diplomatic missions. "For the past 5 years, I have been tracking unexplained security events wherever human diplomats are present. The pattern is consistent and terrifying." Zixmar leaned forward, his compound eyes studying the floating data. "You believe the humans are responsible for these incidents?" "I believe the humans possess capabilities that make conventional warfare obsolete," Cathara replied. "And I believe they have been hiding this fact while our governments struggle to understand how to deal with them." She gestured, and the files rearranged themselves into chronological order. 3 years ago, Starbase Omega-7, Saurian assassination team targeting human trade representative Su Jin, found unconscious in their quarters before the attack could begin. Velthar's scales darkened with anger. "That information is classified. How did you obtain it?" "Intelligence Chief Morgak provided it during my research. He believes galactic security requires sharing this knowledge among allied species." She continued through the files. 2 years ago, Nexar Prime, terrorist cell planning to bomb human ambassador Hyun Woo's hotel, discovered sleeping in their hideout with all weapons disassembled. Commander Thulvin growled low in his throat. "We never reported that incident publicly." 18 months ago, Mordan Capital World, extremist group planning to poison the water supply during human trade negotiations, found unconscious at their laboratory with all chemical weapons neutralized. Elder Mordok's tree-like features creaked with tension. The official report blamed equipment failure. 6 months ago, Zephani Research Station, military unit with secret orders to capture human scientists for interrogation. Entire unit experienced simultaneous system failures and medical emergencies that prevented mission completion. Crystal Singer Zephyl's harmonic voice carried notes of distress. "How could you possibly know about classified military operations?" "Because every intelligence agency in the galaxy has been investigating the same phenomenon," Cathara explained. "Threats against human interests consistently fail in ways that appear coincidental but follow identical patterns." She highlighted specific data points in the files. "Precise neurotransmitter manipulation causing temporary unconsciousness. No detectable delivery method. Perfect timing to prevent hostile actions. Effective range of at least 1 kilometer. No known countermeasures." Zixmar stood abruptly, his armored carapace clicking. "You are suggesting that humans can read minds and control brain functions remotely?" "I am suggesting that humans have developed technology or abilities that allow them to detect hostile intent and neutralize threats before they can act. The evidence is overwhelming." Velthar studied the data files with growing alarm. "If this is true, then no species in the galaxy can threaten humanity successfully. Any attack would be detected and prevented before it could begin. That is correct. But the implications go much deeper. Kethara activated another set of files. Analysis of human diplomatic behavior over the past 12 years shows consistent patterns of restraint and cooperation. They make reasonable requests, accept fair compromises, and never demand special treatment. What does their diplomatic behavior have to do with these security capabilities? Commander Thulvin asked. Everything. If humans possessed these abilities and wanted to conquer the galaxy, they would have done so already. Instead, they have used their power purely defensively while maintaining the pretense of being just another peaceful species. Elder Mordok's ancient voice creaked with understanding. They are hiding their true capabilities to avoid frightening other species into desperate actions. Exactly. But there is more. Kethara displayed additional files. Species that have attempted hostile actions against humans experience unusual difficulties afterward. Military equipment failures, communication network problems, industrial accidents. Always plausibly deniable, but statistically impossible as mere coincidence. Crystal Singer Zephel's harmonic tones grew discordant with fear. You believe they engage in covert retaliation? I believe they have multiple capabilities beyond what we have observed directly. The defensive ability to stop threats may be only the most visible aspect of their true power. The room fell silent as the council members absorbed the implications. If Kethara's analysis was correct, humanity was not just another galactic civilization. They were a power that could control or destroy any other species if they chose to do so. Zixmar began pacing around the table, his claws clicking on the metal floor. This cannot be allowed to continue. If humans have such power, they represent an existential threat to all other species. Do they? Velthar asked quietly. In 12 years of membership, they have never used their abilities aggressively. Every incident involved defense against actual threats to human interests. That we know of, Zixmar replied. How can we be certain they have not used these abilities to manipulate our governments in subtle ways? Kethara activated her final data set. I analyzed all major galactic political decisions over the past 12 years, looking for patterns of human influence, trade agreements, territorial disputes, resource allocations, diplomatic resolutions. What did you find? Nothing. Human requests have been consistently reasonable and well within normal diplomatic parameters. They have never pushed for advantages they could not justify through normal negotiation. If anything, they have been more cooperative than most species. Commander Thulvin slammed his fist on the table. That proves nothing. Perhaps they are simply better at hiding their manipulation. Or perhaps they genuinely prefer peaceful coexistence to conquest, Elder Mordok suggested. Not all powerful species choose the path of domination. We cannot risk our entire civilization on the hope that humans will continue to be benevolent, Zixmar argued. They must be confronted and their capabilities neutralized. How? Kethara asked. According to every intelligence analysis, they can detect and prevent any hostile action before it occurs. Any species that attempts to move against humanity will find their forces incapacitated before they can act. Then we move together, all species simultaneously. They cannot stop the entire galaxy at once. Can they not? Velthar's voice carried deep concern. We still do not understand the full extent of their abilities. What if they can affect entire populations? What if their range is much greater than we believe? Crystal Singer Zephel produced a complex harmonic sequence indicating deep thought. There is another consideration. If humans wanted to control the galaxy through their mysterious abilities, why maintain the pretense of normal diplomacy? Why not simply demand compliance and use their power to enforce it? Because maintaining the illusion of peaceful coexistence serves their interests better than open domination, Zixmar replied. A controlled population that believes itself free is easier to manage than a conquered one that knows it is enslaved. Or, because they genuinely prefer cooperation to conquest, Mordock countered. Some species value harmony over power. Cathara watched the debate with growing concern. The council members were dividing into two camps. Those who saw humanity as a hidden threat requiring action, and those who viewed them as a benevolent power that should be left alone. Both positions carried enormous risks. There is one way to learn the truth, she said finally. We can ask them directly. The room fell silent. Ask them? Velthar repeated. Ask humans to explain their secret military capabilities? Ask Ambassador Hyun-woo to meet with us privately and honestly discuss humanity's role in galactic civilization. If they truly prefer peaceful coexistence, they may be willing to share information that would reduce tensions. And if they refuse, then we will know their cooperation has limits, and we can plan accordingly. Zixmar's mandibles clicked with agitation. This is madness. We would be revealing that we know their secrets. They might decide to eliminate us to protect their advantages. They already know we suspect something, Cathara pointed out. Commander Velnox's investigation, intelligence agency inquiries, my own research requests. The secure conference room felt different when Ambassador Hyun-woo entered. The same 5 council members who had met in secret 3 days earlier now sat around the table, but their body language betrayed nervousness that had not been there before. They were about to confront a species they suspected of possessing godlike powers. Hyun-woo appeared completely relaxed as he took his seat at the head of the table. Behind him stood Bo-Ram and Tae-ho, the 2 guards whose mysterious capabilities had started this entire investigation. They looked exactly as they always did, calm, professional, and utterly unremarkable. Dr. Cathara had requested this meeting, so she spoke first. Ambassador Hyun-woo, thank you for agreeing to meet with us privately. We have some questions about human diplomatic security procedures that we hope you can help us understand. Of course, Dr. Cathara. I am always happy to discuss diplomatic matters with my colleagues. Hyun-woo's smile was warm and genuine, showing no sign of concern about what might be coming. 3 days ago, during the territorial dispute session, 4 armed Krikstal warriors collapsed suddenly while threatening your delegation. Our investigation has found no explanation for what happened to them. Yes, that was quite unfortunate. I do hope they have recovered fully. Velthar leaned forward. Ambassador, we have discovered that similar incidents have occurred at 17 other diplomatic events where you were present. In every case, individuals planning hostile actions against human interests became mysteriously incapacitated. Hyun-woo nodded thoughtfully. The galaxy can be a dangerous place for diplomats. We are fortunate that medical emergencies at these events have always resolved themselves peacefully. Medical emergencies? Zixmar's voice carried a harsh edge. Simultaneous brain chemistry alterations in multiple healthy individuals caused by unknown methods with perfect timing to prevent hostile actions? Dr. Morwen did mention some unusual readings in her medical reports, Hyun-woo agreed. Quite puzzling from a scientific standpoint. Commander Thulvin slammed his hand on the table. Stop playing games with us. We know your guards can somehow project unconsciousness into anyone who threatens you. We have documented evidence from multiple incidents across 5 years. For the first time, Hyunwoo's pleasant expression shifted slightly. Not to anger or concern, but to something that might have been amusement. That is quite an interesting theory, Commander. What evidence led you to this conclusion? Cathara activated her holographic projector, filling the air with the data files she had compiled. Medical reports, intelligence analyses, statistical breakdowns, and timeline correlations painted a comprehensive picture of human defensive capabilities. Precision neurotransmitter manipulation with no detectable delivery method. Effective range of at least 1 kilometer. Perfect success rate against hostile intentions. No known countermeasures possible. She gestured to the floating data. Every intelligence agency in the galaxy has reached the same conclusion about your true capabilities. Hyunwoo studied the evidence for several minutes, occasionally asking Boram or Taeho to examine specific files. His guard showed no reaction to seeing their activities documented in such detail. This is quite thorough research, he said finally. Dr. Cathara, your analytical skills are impressive, but I am curious about one thing. What is that? If you believe humans possess these remarkable abilities, why did you choose to confront us directly? Would it not be safer to keep your suspicions secret? Elder Mordock spoke with his ancient, creaking voice. Because uncertainty breeds fear, and fear breeds violence. We would rather know the truth and face the consequences than live in ignorance and make fatal mistakes. That is very wise. Fear of the unknown has caused more wars than actual aggression ever did. Hyunwoo looked around the table, meeting each being's eyes in turn. Very well. Since you have gone to such effort to understand our methods, I believe you deserve honest answers. The room became absolutely still. Even the air circulation seemed to quiet as every being focused on the human ambassador's words. You are correct about our guards possessing unusual capabilities, Hyunwoo began. But your conclusions about the nature of those capabilities are not entirely accurate. He gestured to Boram and Taeho. During humanity's early exploration of space, we discovered something remarkable about galactic biology. Most non-human species share certain neurological vulnerabilities that humans do not possess. What kind of vulnerabilities? Crystal Singer. Zephyl asked, her harmonic voice tight with concern. Susceptibility to specific combinations of subsonic frequencies and electromagnetic patterns. When exposed to precise sequences of these stimuli, most alien brain structures experience temporary disruption of consciousness-controlling neurotransmitters. Cathara's crystalline form pulsed with scientific interest despite her fear. You discovered a universal weakness in galactic neural architecture? Not universal, but widespread. About 87% of known species are affected to some degree. The response varies. Some experience mild disorientation, others complete unconsciousness. But the basic vulnerability exists across most non-human biology. Velthar's scales rippled with realization. And you weaponized this discovery. We adapted it for defensive purposes, Hyunwoo corrected gently. Our diplomatic guards undergo years of training and receive biomechanical implants that allow them to generate these frequency patterns naturally. Think of them as living, breathing defense systems. Zixmar stood abruptly, his armored carapace clicking with agitation. You turned your guards into walking weapons capable of disabling entire populations. Only populations that pose a threat to human safety. Boram spoke for the first time since entering the room. Her voice was calm and professional. The effect require specific brain activity patterns associated with hostile intent. Individuals with peaceful thoughts are unaffected. How do you determine hostile intent? Commander Thulven demanded. The neural patterns are quite distinct, Tejo explained. When someone plans violence, their brain chemistry changes in measurable ways. Our training allows us to detect these patterns and respond appropriately. Elder Mordock leaned back, in his chair, understanding beginning to dawn in his ancient eyes. You can only affect those who plan to harm humans. It is not mind control. It is threat detection and neutralization. Exactly. We cannot force anyone to do anything against their will. We can only prevent actions that would result in harm to human interests. Kethara was frantically taking notes on her portable device. What is the effective range of this ability? Approximately 1 kilometer in optimal conditions, Hyunwoo replied. Line of sight to the brain tissue improves effectiveness, which is why it works better on species without heavy cranial protection. And the frequency generators are biological? Velthar asked. Biomechanical hybrids. The implants amplify natural human neural patterns that happen to resonate at precisely the frequencies that affect alien neurology. It was pure coincidence. That human brain activity occurred in ranges that could influence other species. Coincidence? Zixmar's voice carried deep skepticism. The universe is full of remarkable coincidences, Ambassador. This particular one allowed humanity to develop a perfect defensive system against any species that might wish us harm. Commander Thulven studied the two guards with new understanding. So when my people planned hostile actions against your trade missions, they experienced equipment failures, medical emergencies, and other problems that prevented completion of their objectives, Hyunwoo confirmed. Always non-lethal, always temporary, always precisely targeted to neutralize the threat without causing permanent harm. Crystal Singer Zephyl produced a complex harmonic sequence indicating confusion. But why hide these capabilities? Why maintain the pretense of normal diplomatic security? Hyunwoo's expression grew serious for the first time in the meeting. Because knowledge of these abilities would have changed everything. Some species would have attempted preemptive strikes against Earth, fearing human dominance. Others would have demanded access to our technology. Still others would have allied with us purely out of fear rather than genuine cooperation. Instead, you chose to let us believe you were just another peaceful species, Elder Mordock observed. We are a peaceful species, Elder. These abilities have never been used for conquest or coercion. Every application has been purely defensive, protecting human lives and interests from genuine threats. But the power to control galactic civilization was always there, Velthar pointed out. The power exists, yes. The desire to use it does not. Hyunwoo looked around the table again. In 12 years of galactic membership, humanity has never demanded special treatment, never threatened other species, never attempted to use our advantages for selfish gain. We genuinely prefer cooperation to domination. Zixmar began pacing, around the room, his claws clicking on the metal floor. How do we know you will continue to show such restraint? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Because power without wisdom is meaningless, Boram replied. Our training includes extensive education in ethics, philosophy, and diplomatic theory. We understand that true strength comes from choosing not to use power when you possess it. Besides, Tejo added with a slight smile, controlling an unwilling galaxy would be exhausting.